Welcome to the Real Life Artist Podcast. This is the show where we discuss the challenges that come with being an artist, as well as ways you can overcome those challenges through practical applications, shared experiences, and general discussions. My name is Luke. I'm your host. Thank you for joining. Before we get into today's topic, why don't you grab a drink, your favorite snack, or if you're in your car on your way to work or a long car ride, sit back and enjoy. I think you're really going to get a lot out of today's episode. Speaking of which, today's topic is about the fear and uncertainty of starting a new project, how that can hold us back, and how we can manage that. So let's just get right into that. And it kind of made me think that there are so many things that we are afraid of starting, and it always seems like that's the hardest part for some reason, isn't it? You know, we keep telling ourselves we're going to publish music this month, but at the end of the month, we don't. Or you tell yourself you're going to start working out next week or next month, the week comes and goes, and you didn't. Or, we tell ourselves we're going to start selling our music or our services, but that hasn't happened yet. The big question is, why does this happen, and what can be done? Well, to begin this episode, I want to assure you that if I just described you, you're not alone. And I'm glad you tuned into this episode because we're going to tackle this. Because honestly, here's the other reassuring part. Right now, you are starting something. You're starting a podcast episode, which essentially is a path to learning. It's a new path to learning. So, don't be ashamed if you haven't had the success that you want yet. We need to cut ourselves a break. Because ultimately you're here now, you're willing to learn. That's already doing better than where you were just a moment ago. We have to tear down that ego that's telling us we need to be farther than we are right now. We need to give ourselves grace, take a break, and just relieve that pressure for a minute. I'm giving you permission to do that. Because I have a feeling if you were listening to this episode specifically, maybe you don't give yourself that relief of pressure. Just go ahead and do it right now. Take a deep breath. And out. In. And out. Here's the cool thing about starting. Once we start, things snowball. And we're going to learn more about what this means. But, we're going to become more confident in our skills, abilities, portfolio talents, etc. But how do we do that? Let's dive in. So our outline for today is why we do not start, the 3 rules of starting, and then persistence or persist, how to continue when we get discouraged. So, first off, first part of our outline, why do we not start? Well, as I said in the beginning, starting is the hardest part of the process, typically the creation process. We don't usually start, one, because of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is this idea that we don't feel qualified or we're not the right person for the job. Or oh man, how did I get in this position? Like they're hiring the wrong person, wrong producer, wrong composer. I don't know how I got here, but I'm really not the right person. Like I'm super insecure. If they really saw my music, if they really saw my workflow, then they would have known this was a bad decision. I've been there. But that's one reason that prevents us from starting something, whether it's a business venture or another project. 2, analysis paralysis. So what is this? Well, we think that if we keep reading and researching, we're watching YouTube videos, whatever it is, keep learning. We think we're going to gain the skills to get where we want to be better. But the thing is, this is a lie that just keeps us going in circles and circles and not getting anything done. And the reason we do this is because it feels like we're getting things done, even though we're not. But it's impossible to fail. And so it keeps us comfortable, right? It's impossible to fail learning and stuff. You can keep rewatching videos and reading books in the same sentence over and over again. And there's really no sense of failure. Like, wow, this project really didn't go where I wanted it to. There's no sense of failure. We get stuck in paralysis by analysis, or analysis paralysis, whatever you want to call it. We keep researching, we're not actually getting things done. And then the other reason we don't start is a failure to plan ahead, which I know it sounds weird, like, well, what about starting? Well, here's the thing. I'm talking about getting work done, like starting something that's actually due tomorrow or next week, starting those kind of things. Failure to plan ahead. We tell ourselves this lie. Well, am I eating today? Then why should I worry about tomorrow? And I get it. We really do need to be focused on today and in the present now. However, we need to consider the fact that if we're going to have consistent efforts, that we have to plan ahead. We have to consider that maybe today we can work, but tomorrow we can't. We'll be traveling all day. We won't have time. If we're going to be putting content out consistently, if that's part of your job as a creator, if we're going to be replying to clients and actually making and publishing music regularly, we need to plan ahead. Okay, so that is why we don't start, right? This is why we do not start. But I have 3 rules of starting that I think are going to be very valuable for you. So those are the reasons we don't start. Imposter syndrome, analysis paralysis, and failure to plan ahead for the coming days or weeks, or even months. Now, here are the 3 rules for starting. Rule 1, reframe expectations. Rule 2, follow the system. And Rule 3, finish and rebuild. So, what do I mean by all these? All right, let's start with rule number 1. Reframe expectations. So, when walking into something new, I'm just going to be blunt. Don't expect your efforts to be perfect. I mean, I don't expect mine to be perfect, and I think it's a healthy mindset to walk into something and not expect it to be perfect the first time around. If it is, that's awesome. But again, we don't want to get into, analysis paralysis or imposter syndrome or anything. So, if there's no chapter 1, how can there be a chapter 2? So again, keep that in mind. It's perfectly okay if our first few attempts don't go great, or even if many attempts don't. Because here's the thing, quality of work is not nearly as important as quantity. So the quantity, or the amount of times we do something, is much more important for learning. You ever heard someone say, well, it's just muscle memory at this point? Well, it's because they've done it so many times. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, cites in his book, Atomic Habits, a Florida State University professor who conducted a little experiment on his film photography class. So he broke the class down into halves, a quantity group and a quality group. So essentially the quantity group of students would be graded on how many photos they produced and submitted. So 100 photos an A, 90 a B, 80 a C, etc. The quality group was graded by how high quality their image was, but they only had to have one image. At the end of the semester or the class, the results were in. The students in the quantity group, of course, had photos at the beginning that were not very good, but they gradually got better and better to the point to where they were very impressive. They had opportunities to fail, to try again, to learn new processes. The quality group, on the other hand, just theorized about what a perfect photo is and researched and looked it up, but they only had one photo to show for, and it was mediocre at best. And again, this further drives home the point that it's not about necessarily how long or how much we theorize about doing something correctly. It's about actually doing it. So the The question to gaining skill, again, is not necessarily how long does it take, but how many? How many reps? How many times do I have to do this? So, how many reps you get is important. So, the 3 rules of starting: reframe expectations, we just talked about. 2, follow the system. So, essentially, when we're getting things done reliably, we need to create a system to get things done. When emotions fail, and trust me, inevitably they will, we need to be able to have a reliable system to get things done. You might wake up and you're like, oh man, I just don't want to do anything today. I'm way too tired. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do. I get it. This happens pretty much every single day for me, but I have systems in place where I can get things done reliably. How can we create a system? Well, let me give you some examples. Make templates for your digital audio workstation or workspace. Pick sounds ahead of time for your style or genre. Make them easily accessible. Use a timer and work in 15, maybe 20-minute intervals, and this is really going to optimize your time. I know it sounds silly, like, oh man, no, I just want to work for hours and hours, but if you cut your time into 15 or 20-minute segments, you would be surprised how much more you actually get done. I have this little timer I got off of Amazon. I'm going to show it to the camera, so if you're watching the video podcast, you can see it. Let's see if it'll focus up. It's sort of like a kitchen timer, and I just have to, there we go, it's in focus. Set a time in minutes and then hit start, and yeah, it's go time from there. So I implemented this and I saw major results in my work ethic and workflow. So highly recommend that you consider implementing one. Also, use a calendar to set hard deadlines for when a project must be complete by. I know we're artists, we like having wiggle room to not do things, but you really need to be keeping yourself accountable with a calendar. Utilize to-do lists and prioritize important tasks. And so this will prevent you from getting into this cycle where we only complete easy or unimportant tasks to feel like we're doing things. But remember, we do need to prioritize our tasks. We don't have all the time in the world. And then automate do not disturb on your devices so that you can focus at certain times of the day. So if you get to work early in the morning, which is what I do, I have my phone to automatically go on do not disturb in the morning, so I don't even have to think about it. I'm just not bothered. So consider utilizing that. Also consider getting an accountability partner and just having a social contract. Like, hey, if you don't see a beat posted like every week or something, like I owe you 20 or 30 or 40 bucks or 100, however extreme is enough to really light a fire under you to make you do this. So the 3 rules for starting, to summarize currently, is reframe your expectations, follow the system, and finally, rule 3, finish and rebuild. See, the most important thing is for us to finish our projects, even if you aren't happy with them. By doing so, you can close the book, move on to the next chapter, and after you put a close to the projects and move on, you can set aside time, and this is really important, to analyze your process, your project. Just really think about what can we improve here, and how can we improve for next time, optimize it, and just get your reps in. That's really the most important key takeaway. So the 3 rules for starting are reframe your expectations, follow the system, and then finish and rebuild. So those are the 3 rules. Now let's talk about persistence briefly. When things don't go your way, and trust me, there will be times they don't often. I feel this all the time. I always feel like things don't go the way I would like them to. We must persist and push on. Now, I've shared this quote before, but it's really just so good that I have it on a vision board that's on my bathroom door, and I look at it every single day. And it's just so powerful. It's an excellent definition of what it means to persist. Here it is, quote, "It's okay to be discouraged. It's not okay to quit. To know you want to quit, but to plant your feet and keep inching closer until you take the impenetrable fortress you've decided to lay siege on your entire life. That's persistence. This is by a quote by Ryan Holiday in his book, The Obstacle is the Way. I highly recommend it. Excellent read. Discusses how obstacles are actually how we learn and get better at things. But that's persistence. Again, it's okay if we're discouraged, but it's not okay to quit. And we can try things. Okay, well, I'm going to try casting nets everywhere, and some things may fail. Yeah, you can cut those off. But what's your main goal? That's what we're not going to quit, even if we're discouraged. So, in closing, in summary to all this, starting will lead to a snowball effect, and you're going to get more skilled as you go. It'll just get bigger and bigger. You're going to learn things. Your mindset is going to change. You're going to get more done. The 3 rules to starting are reframe your expectations, follow the system, and finish and rebuild. So reframing expectations means lay down perfectionism and get your reps in. Quantity is much more important than quality, especially in the beginning. 2, follow the system. Create a reliable system to get things done consistently. Again, we went over examples like utilizing Do Not Disturb and automation and timers. And then finally, the 3rd rule to starting is finish and rebuild. Finish projects, close that chapter, move on, and then analyze your system and your workflow and even your projects. How can we do better here? And finally, persist. Realize that you're going to get discouraged, probably a lot, and that's okay. It's just not okay to give up on our long-term goals here. If you need encouragement, however, you're in the right place. That's why I created this community, Real Life Artist, to unite and join artists in this difficult career path called music. All right, let's be honest, it's a difficult career path. Send a message to the contact information I have in the show notes because I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear what you're going through. Maybe you have a question, comment, story to share. Please send it over. Voice memo, email, comment, message. If you like the show, please leave a review, as it would really help. It would really mean a lot. So thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you got something out of it. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.